Our third story of the day. Am I the a-hole? Mother-in-law and breastfeeding / staying the night. I'm a first-time mom and due in about 6 weeks, and somehow the topic of me breastfeeding was brought up. My mother-in-law has 3 grown sons, and she chose not to breastfeed because she thought it was weird. She is so opinionated on me wanting to exclusively breastfeed. She said, well, you're going to need a break at night, and DH, my husband, will want to feed her at night sometimes, and the family will want to feed her, so I'm basically being selfish. I guess I understand her feelings, but I want to breastfeed my child. I feel like there are other ways a family can bond with her outside of feeding. I know that breastfeeding will be hard work, and I understand and I'm okay with waking up every 2 to 3 hours to feed her at night. It's a sacrifice I have to make if I want to keep my supply. She's also been hinting at spending the night once the baby is born. I mean, I'm okay with her spending the night because our relationship is pretty good, but she most definitely will not be playing mom or feeding the baby at night. I'm so frustrated. Am I the a-hole? Dear OP, you are absolutely not the a-hole. One of the strangest things that I have come across on this forum is quite how many opinions people have on how you feed your child. And I am 100% one of those people who's very pro breastfeeding. But I wouldn't actually go up to another person and say, hey, you have to breastfeed. How dare you not breastfeed? Because I don't think that that's a very good way to approach that conversation if you actually want to change someone's mind, if anything. That said, I completely cannot comprehend the other angle of this. The response of, oh no, how dare you want to breastfeed? Because breastfeeding is the natural way that we've been feeding babies for millennia, for as long as humans have existed on the planet. I really hate the one part about this thread that just grinds my gears, that makes me really angry, is the way that she tries to couch it as though she's doing this out of care and out of love for you and for the family. You're going to need a break at night. I would say, hey, I'm a grown adult woman. I can decide if I need a break at night, and I can decide how to deal with that perfectly well without anyone else's opinion and without anyone else being involved. Thanks for your concern, but sometimes people's concern is a little bit overbearing and kind of overreaches what is reasonable in terms of how they interact with you. And this is definitely one of those situations where it's like, it's not really your business if I need a break at night or not. And then she says her husband will want to feed her at night sometimes, and the family, i.e. me, the mother-in-law, will also want to feed her. So the mom here is being selfish. What that says to me, dear mother-in-law, is that you are the one who is selfish, because it's not that you care about what's good for the child. It's not that you care about what's good for the parent, for the mother. It's not that you care about their relationship and how great breastfeeding can be for them and how breastfeeding is actually the ideal food source for a baby. What you care about is you being able to relive your days of being a mother, which I understand because being a mother is a great experience. And of course, I totally understand being nostalgic about it and wanting to experience it a second time. But the selfish urge here is coming from the mother-in-law, and the fact that that's projected on the mother really just makes me angry. I kind of hate this way of talking to people. It feels to me like you're talking down to someone. I like, on some level, I kind of appreciate this point of she has been hinting at spending the night once the baby is born. That, you know, people will often talk about parenting as this extremely difficult thing, and pretty much everyone will throw around the term sleepless nights. And this idea of spending the night, you know, waking up repeatedly through the night, also waking up repeatedly to nurse or to feed your baby through the night is a sacrifice. You know, it's something that's quite hard for the body to go through. And this is true to a certain extent, but it's also actually a pretty magical time. And I find it somehow amusing that despite the fact that the mother-in-law here never breastfed her babies, she still has this sense of nostalgia and positive association with the idea of waking up at night to feed the baby. I think that's kind of sweet. Of course, I would say no. Again, it's totally fine to tell her that she can spend the night. I would just be upfront and say, you know, it's up to me how I feed my baby. If I want to nurse, I'm going to nurse. Thanks for your opinion. And that's it. There's no real room here for any more discussion about it. That would be how I would approach it anyway. Although I would honestly be quite shocked if my mother-in-law ever decided to have opinions about whether I nurse or not. But that's me. To switch to some of the comments here, one person says, I would tell her it isn't up for discussion and you and your husband will figure it out. Everyone is different. I didn't need breaks at night, but I found that in the evening was when I wanted my husband to give one bottle and then I pumped while he fed. You may find that it's different for you or it isn't needed. If she spends the night, be clear on expectations that she'll be waking up every couple of hours for no reason, as she likely won't be needed and won't be feeding the baby. If she still wants a bad night's sleep and wants to come, that's on her. Just be clear and honest about it. The next person says, tell her to mind her own breasts. Even if I was pumping, I would still be getting up every 2 to 3 hours, and the topic is closed. Um, and one person replies to that saying, also, millions of women exclusively breastfed and somehow managed to get enough sleep, although admittedly less sleep to survive it. Fathers of those babies also find other ways to bond. And then people go on about how to find a support system if you're breastfeeding. In general, I think this is one of those situations where, as a grandmother and as a father and as extended family members, you just have different ways of bonding with a baby, especially with a newborn. I don't think anyone has quite the same way of bonding with a newborn, like especially a very, very newborn in the first 2-3 weeks of life. That is very much the maternal space, but that also makes sense because the baby was up to a second ago literally inside the mother. And of course, there's a desire on both sides to still be pretty close during that period of time because it's a transition, right? You can't just go from being attached to someone literally inside them and that being the only thing that you know forever to just being, paraded around all these different family members that you as a baby have no contact with, have had no contact with, that you don't know. And it takes a lot of time for the baby to be independent enough for that to make sense. But in general, yes, this is absolutely wrong from the mother-in-law, and it blows my mind a little bit that she ever felt like she could say that or that she could have this opinion. And I find it actually a bit sad. Some part of me reads this and assumes that as the mother-in-law decided not to breastfeed because she thought it was weird, some part of her deep down wants to prevent her daughter-in-law from having that experience because she didn't get to have it. But that's maybe I'm being uncharitable, maybe that's a bit mean to assume, but that's how I read this situation.